In 1940, the Western Maryland Railroad took possession of 12 4664 Challenger steam locomotives from the Baldwin Locomotive Works. With a boiler pressure of 250 psi and a tractive effort of over 95,000 pounds, they served the Wild Mary, hauling heavy freight trains with the H-Class 280s and I-Class Decapod 210s, and later the Western Maryland J1 Potomac 484s throughout the 1940s. In the early 50s, however, the M2s would all be retired and scrapped, not a single one preserved. In the early 1940s, when World War II was raging and traffic skyrocketed, the Pennsylvania Railroad was looking for a new locomotive to haul heavy freight trains. However, with the War Production Board putting an all-out ban on any all-new designs being built, the Pennsy was not able to build a new locomotive from the ground up, so they leased a Chesapeake, Ohio T1 210 Ford Texas type, a Norfolk and Western Class A 2664, and a Western Maryland M2 Class Challenger. After testing all three designs, the Pennsy decided to go with the Western Maryland Challenger to base a design from. The result being the Pensy's GG2. 105 of these Challengers were built by the Pensy's own Altoona Works. These new Challengers were fairly similar in terms of power output, speed, and reliability, but noticeable cosmetic differences, them being a keystone number plate, headlight, and bell mounted to the top of the smoke box, a Pennsy 3-chime whistle, a cast iron pilot, and a large coast-to-coast tender. Also, the GG2s were technically the second 4664 on the Pennsy if you count the GG1 electrics as a fun side note. They helped out immensely with the heavy wartime traffic and was an interesting contrast to the T1, S1, and Q2 duplexes, which were arguably the Pensy's most technologically advanced steam locomotives in 1955. All the GG2s would be retired and scrapped by late 1955. All of them were gone by 1958, none being preserved. The Roaring '20s was a decade where steam technology was not only pushed through the limits of that time, but also led to the entire globe doing wild locomotive experiments. With rigid frame locomotives getting larger and more powerful, and the rising rail traffic, the Northern Pacific Railroad was looking for the new passenger locomotive, and this created the 484 Northern, a wheel arrangement that would become absurdly popular by railroads and rail fans alike. With the first 12 built by Alco in December 1926, classified as just the A class, they proved their worth for the Northern Pacific, hauling heavy, fast passenger trains such as the North Coast Limited, and among others. By 1943, the final batch of these 484s, designated A5, were built and put to service, the Northern Pacific now having 49 484s on their roster. Sadly, all of them would be retired and scrapped by the 1950s in favor of diesel power.